Hello, welcome to Check for Traps. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Ruben.
Holy fuck, who the fuck are you?
That's
Oh
right.
god.
I've invaded like a Klingon pirate.
So it turns out the one thing that Josh isn't willing to do with me, the other one thing other than anime, is Star Trek. And so I have had to draft in the best Star Trek man I know.
Oh, well, that's too
This is
kind.
Ruben.
Thank you very much.
He's fresh off of watching the entire TNG. He's done his tour of duty
I have. I'm
around
going through
the.
binging them all. We recently just finished TNG again.
And so, as you might be able to tell from the title, we've decided to check out this new There Star Trek that they've put out. We're getting lots of Star Trek. We've had Discovery, which I'm not sure about you, but I didn't overly like.
Oh, it was bloody drivel, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so now there's a chance for some good old-fashioned Star Trek, perhaps.
And I think for me as well that the bar was set slightly higher for this because they've seen Discovery and know exactly what not to do because so much of Discovery was tripe. I thought this was a prime example to take that and improve on it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It felt like it had been focus tested around Discovery. They were like, what did people really not like? And again, I'm there is obviously a certain like group of people who clearly keep watching Discovery, like it's been greenlit for a third season. I'm sure there's someone, but yeah, I guess it just didn't really feel very Star Trek-y to me. So I guess first, before we get into any sort of conversation about it, like, would you recommend this to people as a fan who's watched, like me, as much Star Trek as there is to consume?
I think it's probably too early to say based on just the first episode whether I'd recommend it to anyone. So, yeah, I guess to the average Trekkie, then you've got to watch it, right? But to the average stranger who might not be a sci-fi fan, might not be a Star Trek fan at all. I don't know. Hard to say. It's like beginning at the end of the story, isn't it? Really, if you were to start with
Yeah,
that. But
that's the thing. I think that would be my thing. Is like if you don't have any particular attachment to TNG, I think my answer would probably be no, just off this episode. I mean, it might become its own thing, but yeah, this staples itself pretty hard to TNG, which I guess lends itself onto the expectations bit, because I actually wasn't expecting it to staple itself onto TNG quite as hard as it did. I thought it was going to be sort of like soft reboot, like, watching or like knowing what happened in TNG wasn't going to be that mandatory, or they were going to make it really apparent, or they weren't going to focus on that many things. But yeah, like we talked about briefly before we began. Like they start literally where they left off in a card game.
yeah, and I agree as well about
fantastic.
you saying they about it being stapled on the end of TNG. Well, I heard that the director had said in an interview that it wasn't meant to be a successor to TNG. It wasn't like a sequel, but it quite clearly is a fucking sequel. Like it literally goes. It begins directly where TNG finishes, with them playing poker together. And I thought that intro was fantastic. Actually, the intro where they're sitting down and playing poker, I thought it was great. I thought it was exactly where I'd want it to begin, if anywhere. That was
Definitely.
very well done.
When I felt like a little pang in my chest when he's like, "Captain, why are you stalling?"
Yeah,
And I was
I
like,
don't
"I know
want it to
exactly
end."
why he's stalling."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was lovely. But yeah, that was some bullshit. I tell you what, this happens so much. Like I watch a lot of like interview with like the director, and you can tell that they're given like, it's like, you need to say these buzzwords, like you need to say things that will make people tune in. And the problem is those things are completely disconnected from the product they have just made. Like in this case, where he's like, "Oh yeah, no, it's not a continuation of TNG. It just literally invokes the end of the last season of TNG."
And the same with the follow-up scene of the vineyard as well, is a direct continuation of the last episode of TNG, where he's traveling through time in the different timelines.
The different timelines, like the references to Dahlstrom and stuff all came up again, just like a bunch of really niche or more niche stuff than I assumed they were going to go for. Again, I think you said like the bar was so low for me with Discovery, and like the really obvious references, like, do you remember Spock and do you remember Captain Pike, that I wasn't really expecting, like, Bruce Maddox, the Captain Picard Day banner, to show up.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be way more on the nose. I thought it was going to be like, do you remember Guinan? I remember Guinan. But no, it's not even. That was a pleasant surprise. But obviously there were some less than pleasant surprises. So let's get into spoilers regarding this. Captain Picard is an old man because Patrick Stewart is an old man, and I'm glad they didn't DH him. He's apparently supposed to be approaching his 100s, which I guess makes sense for Star Trek.
Yeah,
because
like
they age
health
weird.
is meant to be much
of
better in the future.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Exactly, like McCoy lived to be like 150 or something, 160. So yeah, sure, that's fine. Data is obviously dead. There's no spoilers there. I thought it was pretty funny that it undid that like happy ending bit from Nemesis, where they're like, "Oh, don't worry, Data might have downloaded his brain into B4," and then that science woman is like, "Oh no, he failed to do that. He's dead."
Well, they're kind of hinting at that's what's going to be happening again, isn't it? With this new character who can be rebuilt from a single positron, or
your positronic network Data. You're his daughter, kind of.
crock of shite. Well, we'll
Yeah,
get onto that in a bit, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be
that's the meat of
shit,
this like dog shit sandwich that we're about to take a bite of.
But let's focus on the nice bit for begin with. Let's focus on that
let's stay in
cheese.
the beautiful twilight zone of the intro, which was really nice.
Just the vineyards, like the farm. I loved his interview. I thought obviously the person interviewing him was sort of almost comically slimy and journalistic, but it worked.
I'm not sure that I feel like he was great in the interview, fantastic. The interviewer, however, was weird. Like I don't understand why she was weirdly racist. I thought, like, why did she, when they were talking about how it's gonna we need to save all these lives, Picard was going, this is 900,000 people, 900 million people or something we've got to go and save. And,
that was ridiculous.
She's like, yeah, but Romulan people.
But why?
Like, who would say
exactly.
that? If that was
That's mad.
in human terms, and it was somebody we'd once been at war with, and we were like, we need to go and save all these Germans, and these are lives. And then an interviewer was like, oh yeah, German lives. Then it would be
exactly
ridiculous.
And I think that would be unacceptable now, and so therefore in like the Star Trek Peace and Harmony future, where everyone's like walking around LA in their bare feet, it makes even less sense.
Yeah,
like she must be such a controversial figure if that's what she's saying, given like what we believe, what we know, we have generally been told is the political mood of the Star Trek of the Federation.
Universe, the Federation is basically like some kind of bizarre futuristic communist utopia.
Yeah,
and it seems a bit bizarre for in this like weird socialist future that someone would be openly weirdly racist.
She would be allowed to say that, on like what presumably is like national or intergalactic television at this point. Yeah, no, that's the only thing I was thinking. I was thinking, because if they did this, then I think they did it really lazily. Because I was thinking, is it supposed to show that Federation culture has declined somewhat? Is it supposed to show that it's like no longer as optimistic? But if so, then I don't think they did it well enough.
Yeah, it's obviously they're trying to create like the air of tension between the Federation and their previous rivals, but it was a little bit on the nose, wasn't it? Just
because all that would have taken is like Patrick Stewart just being like, "Oh, it didn't used to be like this," or something like that. Like he could have referred to this being strange behavior, but he didn't. He was just like, he was just like weirdly accepting of it. I think again
they used that line, didn't they, where he said, "These are lives," and made an emphasis on it being a life rather than a Romulan life. If they'd stopped it there and she said, you're proposing we go and save 900, however many thousand it was, Romulan lives, and he cut. I
think it was 900 million, which is a lot. Lives,
that would have been much better, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it was just completely unarguable. And again, I liked his little Dunkirk bit. Again, that was another instance of his dialogue being a cut above everyone else's.
Yeah, and it fits to this character as well, because this character he's a history lover, and they mentioned that he's now a published historian.
Yeah, he's penned it, hasn't he? Yeah, I liked that as well.
So that seems like an excellent thing that a naval officer with a love of history would do in his retirement, right? Write a book.
Yeah, tend to his vineyard, write a book, have a dog called Number One. Get to hear him say Number One again. Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Dunkirk analogy was great because it's completely in line with a historian and a lover of history, and then
and of course she doesn't know what Dunkirk is.
Exactly, yeah, he berates her for not knowing what Dunkirk is. I think that's great.
Yeah,
makes perfect sense. And I think in this timeline, Dunkirk would have been like 400 years ago or something, right? So
yeah, exactly. It would be like knowing about any given battle of the 30 Years' War.
Yeah, it'd be niche.
As completely and even more detached, because there's comparatively little has changed between the 30 Years' War and now compared to Dunkirk and Star Trek.
Yeah, obviously since then in this timeline they've had World War III and humanity's eradicated itself.
Yeah, exactly. The gene wars and stuff like all this fucking ridiculous shit. Khan.
Yeah, and also they mention in that scene that synths have been banned, synthetic humans have been banned.
Yeah.
No more robots. No.
They sure did. I was thinking about that actually because they mentioned the Dahlstrom Institute, and I remember the hologram doctor from Voyager. I remember he had like high opinions of the Dahlstrom Institute, And I was wondering, like, is he allowed still? Because I remember there was like a big fight for hologram rights in Voyager, and obviously he becomes like,
He is a synthetic life form, isn't he?
well,
So
exactly, and he becomes. I was thinking, is it just because they have a hologram in the archive and she's allowed, and she
I
seems,
didn't even think
and
about that. Yeah, that's very
but she's
true.
also like she's not made of like hard light like the Doctor was, because the Doctor had that weird Delta Quadrant technology,
Yeah,
right?
she
So I was
seems more
thinking
like a interactive
I think
Siri
she's
or
a bit,
something,
yeah,
doesn't
I think
she?
she's a bit more automated, isn't she? Yeah, she's like a really advanced
Yeah,
Alexa. But that's the thing. But I wasn't sure, and I thought it was interesting. I was surprised it wasn't addressed because, and
yeah. I
again, it's
think
just all
she
another
was
thing.
a
Like as soon as they,
glorified, Index played Despacito kind of character.
I guess so. But yeah, I'm essentially what I'm wondering is the Baldy Doctor from Voyager being rounded into like a one-man concentration camp?
Yeah,
Is
this is it. So they said they banned synths, and they also said that uh, there were absolutely loads of these synths, and they created they attacked. Was it they attacked Mars?
burnt
Was it? Yeah.
Mars.
And
Yeah,
as a
they burnt
result
like the
of that,
shipyards of Mars to the ground.
the atmosphere of Mars was set on fire, and Mars is still on fire. I'm not sure if that's scientifically possible, but
Still on fire to this day. I mean, it's
sure.
quite striking as a statement. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, okay, sure.
But obviously that insinuates that there were enough synthetic life forms for them to mount a revolt on the Federation. So there must be
Yeah.
loads of them. So where do they all go? Do they just switch them all off? Did they, like he said, genocide them all?
Yeah, no, it raised a lot of questions, and I
Maybe
hope we get them answered.
maybe we'll find those
Um,
answers out in the rest of the season. That'll be very
Maybe.
interesting. I'll be quite annoyed if they never mention that.
Definitely. Well, that's the sort of thing, and again, like, it's sort of the problem is with because I've not watched any of I think they call them short treks, don't they? They've been producing like this web series of Star
Yeah.
Trek. I've not watched those. So my most recent interactions with Star Trek is Discovery, and so it's the sort of thing that I can fully believe they would hand wave, but I've got to have better hope in the writers of this show. I will say, actually, just to give them credit where credit's due, I really like that they're rolling with the J.J. Abrams destruction of Romulus as a thing. Like they did it in Star Trek Online, and I like that they are keeping it canon, because it would be very tempting to make it not canon in my mind,
Yeah,
because it
'cause
was obviously something that a dumb sci-fi writer or a dumb sci-fi director came up with
Yeah.
as like a cool way to split parallel universes. And so I think it's good to focus on the ramifications of something as huge as that happening.
Because this is the Star Trek 2009 universe now that they're in, isn't it?
Officially called the Prime Universe is the universe that Picard's in.
Oh.
It's the original universe of like TOS, etc. And then you have something cool. I can't remember. It's named after the ship. Kelvin Universe is the universe that Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, etc. exist in.
Okay.
Split off at the ship coming back and destroying Kirk's father, played by Chris Hemsworth in 2009.
Yeah. Okay.
So I like that they've kept Prime Universe. I think if they are going to continue those Star Trek films, then I think it's nice to have them exist in the same multiverse rather than just denying one another. That would feel really cheap. And yeah, like I said, it is an interesting concept. It reminds me a bit of sort of like a Warhammer or something, like 40k, like planets being destroyed and like mass migratory movements and stuff. That's interesting. That's a good an interesting plot point to roll with.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Yeah,
so
credit where credit's due.
Going back to the intro, I think we both agree the intro was pretty strong, and it set the bar high. I liked what I saw.
Oh, really reflective.
Yeah,
it was.
And then we went from that to the scene of a young woman with her boyfriend, and she's sat in their little studio apartment in what looks like Monday, America.
Greater Boston. It's
Greater Boston,
it flashes up and it says Greater Boston.
Okay.
I was like, shit, Boston's looking good.
And so she's talking to her boyfriend about being accepted into the Daystrom Institute, and then he uses the what do you call it, the replicators, and I like that they have like a menu now, little images of what you can order. That makes a lot of sense, because if I was ordering food in a replicator, sometimes you don't know what you want to eat, and you want to see the menu. If I had access to literally everything, then I'd probably eat chicken nuggets every day. I'd want something which is going to give me some options. So that makes a lot of sense.
It's nice to see the visual interface for once, because normally it's just like, computer, get me a ham sandwich.
Maybe all this time Picard's been just drinking Earl Grey hot because he's not aware there's like so many other drinks out there. He's missed
He's
out.
too nervous to ask.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I don't know what else he does. I don't want to appear
Number one,
foolish.
I want PG tips.
Number one, get me the menu.
Yeah, and then out of nowhere, while they're having their lovely conversation, weird Spec Ops guys in black armor warp in, they teleport in, they transport in, sorry to use the Star Trek terms, and then they try and they kill the boyfriend with a throwing knife.
Lots of throwing knives in this.
Yeah,
Too many
and
throwing
then
knives.
they put this little thing on the chick's head. Then they freak out that she's activating after putting a black bag on her head. And let's talk about the black bag, right? So they went in there and they put a black bag on her head. Now you would think if you were transporting in, putting a black bag on someone's head is so they couldn't see where they were being taken, right? Like, you put a bag on someone's head, you chuck them in the back of a van, and then they don't know where they're going, and they don't see your faces because they're in a van. But they've got masks on, and they have access to teleport technology. I feel like at that point, the bag doesn't really add a lot.
You're entirely right. Presumably, they were just gonna teleport or transport straight out of there as soon as they were done. That is.
It was at that point where I was like, I wish someone would put a bag on my head so I didn't have to watch what I know is inevitably going to be fucking awful. So
yeah, that's a really like poor attention to detail right there, because there is no reason, as far as I'm aware, for them to be bringing that.
Bit weird. So they put this
weird.
bag on this chick's head, and then she is activated. So I guess at that point I thought she was some kind of like sleeper agent, like she'd been waiting to be activated all this time. Maybe she still is, and the whole thing's a big plot to get Picard or something. And she activates her ninja skills, her latent ninja skills she never knew about, flings men across the room, kills them all, disrupts them with a little disruptor, dead.
Yeah, and this is when it starts to go downhill, because then she just starts teleporting to the location she needs to be in.
Yeah.
Like, seemingly. Like, she'll just arrive in the vineyard or... which again is obviously on a different continent. There's no.
Yeah, she goes from Boston to France in like a day.
With no money. Yeah, she doesn't think to call her mum in this entire time as well, because she only calls her mum like a couple of days later or a couple of scenes later. And again, there's no sense of timescale there.
But maybe maybe in this future they have publicly accessible transporters. That's not unreasonable. Also, they don't need money, right? Because it's.
Yeah, true. Maybe there's like a one-stop hop to France.
Maybe it's like Futurama where they get in a tube and it sucks them around. But I don't think it's unreasonable to consider that they might just transport everywhere.
Yeah, no, true. But again, it would have been nice to see or to anything like that.
It's not really explained, is it?
She just it felt a bit like a teen drama where she just arrived on the next set that she needed to be on.
The whole thing with her character is like a teen drama. It's like they've got two shows spliced into one, where we've got like the nostalgia trip of Picard spliced with Riverdale. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's really because like one is like very sort of like the death of Sherlock Holmesy, just sort of like an old hero reflecting on what his life was for, and how he's going to spend his final years. And then the other side is like people teleporting in, and then some mad Krav Maga kung fu takes them down.
It was a bit odd.
And again, like I think her dialogue with Picard isn't that good.
Oh, it's very weak, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just and I couldn't even maybe you were able to help me, because I couldn't really put my finger on why I was disliking it so much, but I was having a real bad reaction to it. Like,
I just think her character doesn't have any substance. The only part of her character is that she has ninja skills, and she doesn't actually have much of a personality whatsoever. Like, just because she is a character doesn't mean she has any character.
I'm really hoping it's because they knew they were going to... Well, obviously, they knew they were going to kill her off. But I'm hoping the reason that she's so weak is because they knew they were going to kill her off, and that the other one is going to be the one that has the character development.
Yeah,
and that when she's playing the other sister, she's more substantial. Because it seems like she's got more going on. I mean, for one, I mean, not to skip to the end, but she's on the Borg cube, seemingly. The Romulan-acquired Borg cube. What a fucking twist.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I didn't see that coming.
No, I and again, that's another nice thing, because I think a Discovery show wouldn't have bothered with, it's almost too complex to have the Romulans on a Borg cube. It has to be like one or the other, like the dumbass Klingons on their stupid Klingon ships.
Well, I've got to be honest, I can't wait for Picard to say that I am Locutus of Borg. It's bound to happen.
Exactly. I'm excited for him to be like, you don't fuck with Borg technology,
Yeah.
as he's like punching someone in the face.
I miss the good old days of Worf going, assimilate this, and kicking
Exactly.
someone
So
off into
so
space. So
but yeah, so she's like what, like a seemingly like a counselor on the Borg project, on the
the
Borg Romulan
sister, yeah,
project.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so she seems more interesting at least, and she's got
Yeah,
like this
Sinus or something. I don't know.
bad boy Romulan love interest seemingly.
Yeah.
Daj had one good interaction with Picard actually, which was her talking about her botanist father splicing together a an orchid.
Yeah. That added some amount of character.
Yeah, and him saying in return that she was like that orchid was really nice. I was like, that is some that for briefly, like a brief flicker of like, like the heart rate monitor sprang to life. I was like, oh good, we've not lost the patient.
I think generally like the child super soldier plotline that we get right at the start. There's no real lead up. Just immediately is the child super soldier. It's a weak plot line. It doesn't really go very well.
No.
They obviously they did it in Fireflies, the thing that I thought of straight away, and in that it's done
Yeah.
much better because the whole thing leads up to finding out that this girl has these like extraordinary powers, and in this it's
That's
her
the thing. It all
entire
came too
character is
quickly.
those powers, and it's not so extraordinary in a world where every single superhero film is plastered all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know where this is going, but I feel like it would have been more impactful to make her flesh out her character, make her exist for a couple of episodes, and then kill her off. Because, and again, like gradually reveal that something's up with her. Because as it stands, like he goes from not knowing her to assuming that she's Data's daughter within 10 minutes, and that could have been a really interesting, like mystery or like discovery. Like he could have done more because he's sort of like, oh, I think you might be important to me. And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting as he genuinely finds it out. But then he found out within 10 minutes. I was like, oh, brilliant. I guess that's
yeah,
that
it was
then.
a bit strange.
So much for that tantalizing mystery.
Yeah.
And again, it just seems like a bit of a weird legacy for Data. Like, I know he always wanted to be, human and things, but I don't think having a kung fu daughter was really...
Yeah,
is really sort of like a fitting end like continuation of that character's arc.
I mean, Picard said that Data always wanted to have a daughter, but Data did have a daughter. There's a whole episode of a fondly remembered episode of Lal, and that's like quite a major plot driving episode, and they kind of like brushed over that. I think maybe they didn't want to mention that old chestnut from a long time ago.
I don't know, but they like they were more than happy to mention other things. Like they had other bits of set memorabilia on there, and like like I said, fucking Bruce Maddox of all people.
Yeah, and the set memorabilia is a good point actually. Because obviously after the Krav Maga bullshit, we go back to the Chateau Picard, where you can he speaks French for pretty much the first time. He hardly ever speaks French.
Yeah, I wanted to say I didn't want to reveal my like fake geek boy dumb, but I don't ever remember him speaking French, and I thought this might be one of the first times.
Yeah, I can't think of a time not where he speaks French in when he's not quoting somebody or something. I think that's like
yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I really like that. And
me too.
They end up going to the Star Trek, the Starfleet archives, and he goes into the little vault, doesn't he, to find out about the painting that he has the dream of, and he. Do you notice there was a little replica of the Stargazer in there amongst the other memorabilia?
Yeah, exactly.
Really cool.
Yeah, there was loads of like, that's what I mean. Like that entire thing was just like just some really nice stuff. And I bet you they didn't have that fucking Captain Picard Day banner to hand. They probably had to redo that.
Totally.
And it looked like a real labor of love. I was like, that got a lot of goodwill from me because that was
the nerds in there with their nostalgia fix, I think.
Yeah, but that's good because Discovery was never interested. Discovery was more interested in like I said, like, do you remember Spock? Do you do you remember Klingons?
The biggest problem with Discovery for me was that it was incredibly reliant on special effects and CGI, which for a franchise that's very famous for its practical effects and I think very good practical effects. They're pretty cheesy in some places, sure, but it does a pretty good job of practical effects. And Discovery was all CGI all over the place, and I quite liked that this was not so reliant on that.
Yeah,
which was great.
That's what I mean. Like he was just walking around. He's just an old man walking around. Very character driven.
Yeah, exactly. And and Patrick Stewart is such an incredible actor. He does old man walking around in a very interesting way, And
Yeah, way more interesting than the Battle of Binary Stars. I would
yeah,
watch I would watch him
exactly.
walking around over 100 Michelle Yeoh samurai fights with the Klingon Emperor because it's just way more investing.
I
Like,
completely agree.
so on that sort of front, big up to Picard. I mean, I guess unless you have anything else to say, I guess we'll get on to where this goes from here. Because I think I'm
We just
pretty much done. I think we covered it all. I mean, other than the
review
I
my
will say I
notes
think
quickly.
that woman is coming back. The woman from the Science Institute. Judging from the next episode trailer, she seems to be part of Team Picard.
Yeah,
Whoever
she's
Team Picard's going to be.
on board Little Enterprise, whatever they're going to call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I assume he's going to assemble, like I guess his fucking house servants will be along as well, probably. I think he's probably going to assemble a crack team of people in his vicinity
Yeah.
to get this girl back.
Was one of the house servants, the woman Laris? Is she Irish? Is her character meant to be Irish?
I think I don't know if it was just her trying to do a weird
I
accent
feel
and
like
that's what she
her
came up with.
accent was all over the place. I couldn't
It
tell what
sounded
was
really
going on.
strange.
I feel like she was an Irish actress that was playing an English character or something.
Maybe she was. Let's see.
I'll
try and find
do
the
some
actress.
research on that one. I'm curious.
From Dublin.
Yeah, so she's an Irish actor playing an English character, and her accent is clearly not gone away. But that's fine. I mean, it would have maybe
Captain Picard's Irish Romulan.
Yeah, maybe it would have been better if she just her character was an Irish Romulan, because if there's a French Romulan, there could be an Irish Romulan, right? It's the Federation.
So.
It's intermingled. Or is she a Vulcan?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
not entirely sure if she's a Vulcan or a Romulan, but
no, I think she's a Romulan. I think they're both Romulans because I think it's supposed to be like his connection to Romulus having failed to save it or having led the evacuation. I think he's supposed to be have lived with that and like adopt sort of invited them in.
That's probably mentioned more with the in the short treks, I expect, isn't it? There's something I was going to mention is a couple of things. So the first one being that when you meet the twin sister in the cube, the hipster chap rocks up, and there's a little spark fly between them. The hipster chap is so obviously going to be the antagonist of the series, isn't he? There's absolutely no subtlety in it whatsoever. Like I thought with the getting all these old actors back in, like they've got Jonathan Frakes back in, they've got Marina Sirtis back in, they've got the woman who plays Seven of Nine, they're dragging up all these old characters.
Man, Picard, you clearly had a very warped memory of Data. If this is what you remember him looking like,
yeah, he's a maybe they built some programming into him where he got a bit chubbier in his old age or something.
I think it's they're trying to show that Picard has degenerative mental disease.
Yeah, but
he is failing to remember
Data. If I was Brent Spiner though, and I was sitting around, and then I just would never think they'd be bringing back Data 20 years after the conception.
He must have been so
Data.
furious.
Yeah,
because if that's all the weight they could make him lose for that role, he must have been like, I will do the bare minimum.
He probably just vegged out on all of his Star Trek money, living his life.
The problem is as well because of the white paint, like it highlighted every wrinkle and roll of fat. It was
poor Brent. I really like Brent Spiner as well. I think he's got a lot of bravado, and his characters are so weird and unique. And
no, definitely, I love the way he controls his body as well. Like
he does the robot
presence,
kind of thing very well, I think.
Yeah, but no, you're right. I'm excited for all the old people to come back, and I'm excited to see. And again, I was more than open and amicable to new characters. I wanted to see how they interacted because this is like a new generation of the Federation.
They're weak new characters, aren't they? I think as
and like you said, it's just much like the Teenage Super Soldier has been done, like the attractive, corrupting hipster boyfriend who has been done as well. And even if you are going to do it, then I shouldn't be able to see it from the first episode, from his very first introduction, just from the look of him. That's terrible. That's not good writing, in my opinion. That's not good. That's not good anything.
He's just so obviously going to be the sinister bad guy. It's just not very well thought out, I didn't think. So yeah, that was something I definitely want to talk about. The other thing was going to be how so they mentioned in the scene where Picard's on the rooftop with Daj, and they get attacked by more Black Ops people who we later find out to be Romulans. she does some really weird, more Krav Maga shit and flies around all over the place. But it
Well, she
also,
does that armbar that every female character seems to do in combat, and I don't know why. I guess it's instantly recognizable and looks kind of cool, but it's just so strange. You always see the same like 3 or 4 moves, and it's very weird.
something that I found really confusing is that they mention that she's a flesh and blood android, which insinuates that she has a humanoid body, but she has a
Yep.
positronic brain, right? Or is like a
Yep.
cyborg rather than an android. She's got,
Yep.
parts of both, kind of like the Terminator or whatever. But if she's flesh and blood, then that insinuates that she's got the physiology of a human. So how can she pick up a man twice her size and throw him across a room?
Yep, I agree. And when she runs up the steps, she's clearly like running at some sort of like super or some sort of motion blur thing. Like she paces. It looks really terrible as well, by the way. Like I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah, they probably could have
Like
just done a much better job of it if they went with the angle that her mental acuity, because of her positronic brain, is so advanced that she's got really good reflexes, and it's like she's essentially seeing things with a much greater reaction time than a human. But like super strength.
Make it so she just like throat punches everyone because she can like she instantly decides and knows like the best spot to inflict the most damage. Like you could make a really interesting like character based around that.
Yeah, I thought it was
but
just a bit weak, wasn't it? And then she get the Romulan
obviously
spits acid in her face, like his blood is acid. Is that a canon Romulan thing? I don't remember Romulans having acid blood. Again, Alex is probably going to beat me with a brick or something for missing a Romulan fact.
They have green blood, don't they? Like the Vulcans, I think. I don't remember it being acid. But yeah, again, we'll get Alec on next time so he can call us idiots in real time. But as far as I remember, that's not a thing.
For someone with like superhuman reactions as well, the disruptor rifle that the Romulan has, it drops on the floor, and for whatever reason it like charges up and begins to detonate, which is the thing they do in Star Trek a lot. They charge their phasers up and use them as bombs and stuff, whatever. But if she's got these incredible reactions and she's like a secret Krav Maga ninja fighter, and she's just looking at this rifle glowing and going, boo, wouldn't you think, well, that's obviously going to explode and run the hell away? Like,
yeah, and then that again, her death was really poorly done because it felt like the amount of competence she displayed up until then was just lost entirely.
Yeah.
And again, it would have been even more it would have been acceptable to me even if I had just known what had happened to her regarding the blood and the spit and stuff. But because I didn't know what was happening there, and then I didn't know why she wasn't running, I was like, oh, it's what really rushed. It's like they realized that they needed to kill her off suddenly, and then that could have been handled a lot better.
And I think as well something that I thought about was that if you can teleport in, if you can transport in, then doesn't that mean you can transport somebody else out? So
as far as I'm aware, I mean, they've done it before, haven't they? Because the reason that they don't just do it at random when they're on ships is because the shields prevent you from teleporting. Yeah,
but there's no shields.
But there's no shields in real life, so on the ground presumably.
I was just thinking, well, if they really wanted her that badly, couldn't they just suck her up and then
just take her? Yeah. No, definitely.
But, maybe it wasn't about that. Maybe it was about finding Picard, and Picard is the target. That was what I thought might have been the case. So the Romulans were there because they were tracking her or something, because she's their little puppet. So maybe they're just trying to get Picard and they're just trying to assassinate him. But on the other hand,
I think you're probably
he's a very famous man, and he lives somewhere called Chateau Picard. So it's probably a bit of a hint where he might be. So if that is the case, then again,
I don't want to address that.
Just shoot him, right?
Yeah, definitely, because that raises 2 questions. Because one, her mum says go find Picard, which leads me to believe you're right, and that they were
the mum doesn't exist, or that instance of the mum doesn't exist. That was a bit weird as well, actually. When she speaks to her mum on the space phone, like the technology that she uses to video chat her mum is literally worse than FaceTime. Like we already have that technology. You can video chat someone on WhatsApp for free, and you get a nice little beautiful 1080p video of them. You wouldn't get some weird crackly hologram of somebody 400 years into the future. But
and like you said, like if teleportation, if crossing from France to New York is so effortless, why was she, or New York to France or Boston to France was so effortless, then why was she not just teleporting across to say hello?
Beam into your grand's kitchen for Christmas lunch or whatever. It doesn't seem like it's much of a difficulty in this future, but.
But again, like away from that, I thought that was good because it implied that she was clearly under threat even from the people she trusted, and it made her actions a bit more desperate. But
Yeah.
again, what then really didn't make sense to me, and again, Picard says something that I think was trying to handwave what had happened. So she arrives on Chateau Picard, and I was like, shit, if anyone can arrive on Chateau Picard like that, why isn't he dead already? Because he has 7 seasons worth of enemies
yeah.
from
There's a lot of people who don't like him.
from TNG, and that's not, just counting the films. And then so I was like, oh, but then he says later on, he's like, you managed to get to Chateau Picard, which requires a certain security clearance or something. He's like, you need security clearance to track me as you've been doing. And I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to mean that like he is a protected individual.
Yeah, like a
but
person of
who's
interest.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it makes sense. He's
he's not exactly living
hero.
in Fort Knox, is he? It's just a little.
No, that's the thing. I was like, is there like a Starfleet cordon, or is there like a group of people like standing by to teleport in to protect him?
Maybe
Again,
it's
just
more like
that...
she like looked his address up in the old Starfleet database kind of thing. I don't really know.
But yeah, is Shinzon not doing that, or all his fucking like all his like weird nemesis?
Hey man, Nemesis was better than Discovery. I'm not too proud to say that. I think as much as Nemesis gets shot on, it was definitely better than Discovery.
Had a sweet dune buggy scene.
Yeah, I forgot all about the dune buggy. Yeah, I take it back. So the last thing I wanted to mention was about the after that the second weird Krav Maga scene where Daj gets disintegrated, boohoo, she's dead, blah blah blah. They mention afterwards Picard recovers, and the two, what we call the house guests of Picard, the Romulans, say that there's no record of this attack, and they found him on the roof, and the recording didn't pick anyone up. Maybe they had some kind of cloaking device or whatever. Okay, so let's say there was some kind of device that made Daj and the Romulans not visible to recording equipment or something, which is, I guess, what they're trying to insinuate. There was an enormous explosion and phaser fire and stuff. Surely, when you're literally next to... Were they next to Starfleet headquarters at that point, or were they next to the Daystrom Institute at that point?
Yeah, they were.
Right?
No, it wasn't Daystrom yet, but yeah, no, it was definitely like
a main
it was
Starfleet
like the San Francisco
building,
area, wasn't it? Yeah,
military/government installation. And this is a universe where they can detect phaser fire on any deck of their ship, so they probably will be able to work out when there's been a massive explosion on the roof of a pseudo-military facility, yet they didn't. No one knew about that, and it was just like they found him unconscious on the roof. That was very.
No,
odd.
I agree entirely. And also, yeah, like I said, it's not like he's no one. He is one of the most important admiral. He's an admiral.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, no, that struck me as really weird. I thought it was very hand wavy. And again, it was just sort of the thing where they wanted the action scene, but they didn't want to have to deal with the ramifications of that.
Oh, something else I just remembered as well. Actually, they mention when Picard and Daj are talking about her realizing that she is an android or a synth or whatever, and he says that she may well be Data's daughter because she's been cloned from his ponatronic energy or his neurons or whatever. But that as a device kind of flies directly in the face, I think, of what I feel like Picard would have said, because there's a whole episode where Riker and the whole A team go down to this planet where it's basically everyone there is a clone. They're all cloned, and Riker has his DNA stolen against his will because these people want to clone him because they need to enhance their own genetic material because there aren't enough of them. So they're trying to make the genetic pool a bit more diverse. So they steal his DNA, and he's furious. Riker is really angry, and he thinks that cloning is completely abhorrent, and it takes away the individuality of the human by just making more of the same human. And Picard's just like, oh, you're Data's clone, therefore you are Data's daughter. And I thought that was a bit of a, if it's clearly a trained thing that cloning is not a Federation technique, then he would.
I mean, what does Picard think? Does he say anything on it, or does he?
He doesn't mention it at all in Picard, but
no, I meant in the episode because I don't remember that episode, unfortunately.
None of them are pro cloning. I remember that much. They all
Okay, well,
think it's
essentially,
a big taboo.
it's weird because he. And again, I always approve. It's the same. One of the reasons that makes Star Wars so good is I really approve of things happening off screen and us having to work out where a character is at now in his life. And there is a really nice bit in this where he's like, "I've just been waiting to die. I've not been living." But they do seem to have really shifted where he's at in terms of his priorities to synthetics.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that that's all that. I feel that's Picard's not a one issue guy. What made him so interesting was that he had such a breadth of knowledge and interests, and they even say it. They say he was like an intrepid explorer and all this stuff. Like he was philosophical. He thought about everything.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping this entire thing isn't just Picard on synthetics because he's guilty about Data. That feels very limiting as in scope.
Yeah, and the whole ban on synthetics thing again, I think, is a very weak and weird plot because the Federation specifically. I don't know if is the Prime Directive a Starfleet thing or a Federation thing. Either way, banning a race of sentient people doesn't really seem like a very pro Prime Directive move.
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, again, I would be more than willing to believe in it if they'd referenced it. And again, he would be, because he says it's not my Starfleet, but nothing ever implied that the culture of the Federation has shifted this far away from the Prime Directive.
I think
which is it's a Starfleet thing. I think I don't think it's
not a Federation thing. Yeah, it's
yeah.
a Starfleet. Well, either way, like a ban on synthetic life forms. I think synthetic isn't the keyword. Life forms is the keyword, isn't it? It's quite a weird move. But
yeah, and I only hope that as this goes on, it does show that perhaps the Federation after the destruction of Romulus, and I hope maybe it does show that things have regressed a little, and that maybe Picard is going to help them find these older values that made the Federation the guiding light that it was. Because as it stands, the Federation seems like it's really taken a step back, but no one's talking about it.
It seems to have regressed, and it's
yeah.
Leftist ways quite significantly.
Yeah, definitely. When episode 2 comes out, I think we'll be watching it.
Yeah, so, definitely. I think to be fair, when I said at the start I wasn't sure if I'd recommend it, that's a lie. I definitely recommend it. I watched Discovery, really excited when I started watching Discovery, thinking this is going to be something a bit different, and it was different. It was bad different, but so far this has been good different. As a whole, it's pretty good. I've got more good things to say about it than bad things. I just feel like we're going to get more of weird Krav Maga and less of interesting, thought-provoking, intelligent conversation. But
yeah, definitely. Well, I think what I'm really happy for, and again, this is so basic a need, and it shows like what a weird state Star Trek's been in. I'm just happy that the timeline's moving forward. Like we've had since Enterprise, I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. I think since Enterprise, we've not had anything advancing the timeline of Star Trek. It's been constant prequels or alternate universes, and it's just really nice to find out what happens next.
Yeah, they do a lot of like temporal jumps and things, don't they, to explore different plots and stuff. So yeah, it's nice to see it be a canon, a plot advancement.
Yeah, exactly. Not like a prequel like Discovery, or not like like a really early prequel like Enterprise. I think, or like a fucking crazy alternate universe, which is again based on TOS, like the movies. So yeah, no, big thumbs up for that. More stuff set after Deep Space Nine, please.
Yeah, agreed.
Join us next time, I guess. Then thank you for joining me, Rueben.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You flexed your Star Trek muscles proudly. Alec will probably only beat us a little bit for this.
I'm expecting the Alec brick, the Lambert brick, to come through my window.